Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Winner's Circle. It's Thursday, November the 19th. I had to think about that for a second, Chip. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Chip Chirimbes. And today's show, we're going to be covering some more college football. It's our late week edition. Chip, how's the last couple days been going for you, my man?
Well, not bad because I took the 2 days off from the Mac. I'm completely refreshed and ready to go. And misnaming a Thursday the 19th in November, half the time I don't even realize what season we're in because this thing
Wow.
is just a constant bombardment every
Yeah.
day. That's why these last 2 days I kind of I relished it and enjoyed it because you're able to clear your head,
Yeah.
especially after the spotty weekend I had. So really looking forward to this week. I think we've got some great things lined up, particularly on Saturday.
Yeah, you need to re-energize once in a while.
Yeah.
And, I was joking because I gave you a note this morning in reference to today's show and called it the late NFL show. And we were joking off air. And I says, when you work every day, all the days blend in together. You get a little
Yeah.
confused. And, we got football every day now. So, it's you always need to re-energize a bit, no matter what line of work you're in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not afforded the opportunities a lot of people are, and that's the life we chose, right, Chip? I mean, I'm happy with it.
Absolutely. And you know what? We didn't choose for the NBA and NCAA basketball to be out right now. And if
Yeah,
they were back, we'd be totally overwhelmed with all the action we'd be involved in. But
yeah,
I think we've used it. I've done it every day since I was like 13. So
yeah.
it's something I once said that if I had hit the lottery, I don't know how much my life would actually change because this is a passion. This is something we've gravitated to in our lives. You said we've chosen it because we love it, and
Yeah.
it isn't. It's a life. It's a lifestyle.
Yes, and I don't regret 1 second of it. Be quite
No, me
honest
neither.
with you. When you wake up, like my father used to tell me when I was a kid, when you wake up every morning and you love what you do when you go to work, you're not working. And I don't know
Well,
if I want to go that far, but
sometimes Ross, when you're having a rough weekend, it's even hard to get your head off the pillow. So
yeah,
we have to just keep going.
yeah, you have to. You have to wipe the slate clean the next day, and that's the toughest thing to do. Not turn one losing day into two losing days
Yeah.
by carrying it over. Anyway, let's get to a couple of Friday games here, Chip. We're recording, like I alluded to, on Thursday,
Right.
November 19th. You are watching us on the OSGA YouTube channel, and if you have not subscribed already, we encourage you to do so. It what helps keeps these videos alive. And don't forget, give us a like at the end of our video. It would be deeply appreciated for the efforts that we put in. So let's talk about the Syracuse and Louisville game, Chipper. This game opened up with Louisville 18 and a half. I saw it go down to 17 and a half. Now it's up to 19. It raises a red flag when you see a team like Louisville, who's not exactly been hot lately, and with a terrible record, and they're a 19-point dog at home against Syracuse, a team I believe is 1-7 or 1-8 at the time. And boy, oh boy, the depth that the Syracuse football program has sank to when you look at this line.
Yeah, and the number is telling. I think Louisville is, say Midland at best. Maybe they might have been able to make a bowl game if we had a full season. Maybe not. I mean, they're not all that impressive this year. But Syracuse is absolutely horrid. And they've lost their quarterback and they have no direction. And this team may be one of the worst FBS teams out there, including teams in the MAC, including teams in these lesser conferences. They are really atrocious this year, Ross. And that when I saw that line, I sort of made a chuckle to myself. And I said, well, I don't even want Syracuse. Uh, Even if the line's telling you, like you said, think like a bookmaker. Isn't a bookmaker saying Syracuse?
Yeah.
Give me the 19 points.
Yeah, exactly. They're begging you to take Syracuse. And yeah, Louisville 2-6 on the year. Syracuse 1-7. Their only win coming over Georgia Tech. They lose at home to Duke by 14. They lose at home to Liberty, who, Liberty's a good team, but to lose at home by 17 against Liberty,
Yeah.
they gave Clemson all they can handle for a while, got blown out against Wake Forest, and Louisville's lost two in a row now, losing to Virginia Tech 42-7 or 35 and Virginia 31-17. Again, when you got a 2-6 team as a 19-point favorite against a 1-7 team, and they're both from the same conference, certainly raises a red flag to me, Chip. So
I agree.
all right, Purdue and Minnesota, a more competitive matchup. Right now, Purdue is a 2.5-point road favorite at Minnesota. And boy, oh boy, if this was the beginning of the year, I would have thought that Minnesota, who was ranked in the top 25 preseason, would have been anywhere from a 7 to 10-point favorite in this game. But boy, oh boy, how fortunes have changed. Purdue off to a 2-1 start. Minnesota, a terrible 1-3 start.
Yeah, and you know, this Golden Gopher team was 11-2 last year, and everybody has such great, you know, prospects for them this year, and they were expecting great things. Open the season against Michigan and get crushed by Michigan. And how good is it? We know Michigan's terrible. So, you know, so they've had a terrible start.
Chip, you know,
they had a lot of people returning, and I actually I'm gonna give this game out as a build your bankroll game, because you know Saturday I have my Big Ten game of the year in the Big Ten. So of course, so this game, I think it's time for the Golden Gophers to circle the wagons and come home and play well. You know, Purdue had 2 yards rushing last week, and you know a lot of people were favoring Purdue to upset Northwestern at home. And I think I had mentioned to you earlier that this is the same position they were in when they had upset Iowa, and I didn't see it happening twice, and they got beat. So now they're in a situation where I just don't think they're going to get there. I think that we've got the winning side here with the Golden Gophers.
Yeah, I would. My lean right now is on Minnesota. You got one team that's overachieved, I guess you could say, in their 2-1 start in Purdue, and another team that's vastly underachieved in their 1-3 start. But I do think this is a Minnesota team that's very capable of coming up with a big effort at home. They're coming off a really bad loss against Iowa last week, 35-7, a game they were never in. And their touchdown they did score was in the waning seconds, and oh, by the way, score. So looking for a bounce back from PJ Fleck's team this week. Let's get on with the rest of the card. New Mexico Air Force has been canceled, if anybody cares. UCLA and Oregon, a game we were talking about earlier today, and I said, watch out, this game starts at 10 a.m., and then Chip texts me back about an hour later to say that they moved the start time to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Yeah. Right now, Oregon, a 13-point favorite, 13.5, depending on where you're looking, Chipper, against UCLA. Oregon off to a nice 2-0 start. UCLA, after getting upset at home against Colorado last Sunday, upset California at home and looked like a whole different club, the club that you thought they would look like in week 1.
Yeah, well, you know, I think this is like a you owe me type of bet here, because, you know, I liked UCLA last week when they were facing Utah. They canceled that game, and within 43 hours, they snuck in the game against Cal, started 9 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time, and the East Coast on a Sunday. Yeah. And so I really feel like I missed out, and now I want them here to get even, to get back. I don't think so. I don't think that's the reason I want them, but they played pretty well against this Oregon team, who's been pretty flawless, and they were trailing 19-7 at one time against Washington State. But you know, my father always used to say, "Cream rises to the top," and they smashed the Cougars. I think UCLA with this Robinson at quarterback may be able to put up enough points. They've had great offense, Ross. Even in the game they lost to Colorado, they put up almost 500 yards offense, I believe, if not more. Yes. And so I think UCLA's in a spot here. You know, Oregon's 2-0. They played well. They're going home. And didn't the line open a little higher and come down? Wasn't the first mark?
Yes,
first
so it opened at 14. And it's down to 13.5, depending on where you look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's my gut feeling about it. We still have 48 hours before kickoff, and they've moved this to a later time so that the whole country's going to get a chance to see it, which means that I have more interest in it myself.
There you go. Because of what the start time, it would have been 7 a.m. your time. And I know you're up at the crack of dawn anyway, so that doesn't make much difference.
Well, I'm usually getting home at that time. You know?
Yeah, there you go. Talking about the good old days. Yes, UCLA had 478 yards of total offense in that loss to Colorado, 48-42, but they were plagued by -4 in the turnover department. Speaking of turnovers, Chip, Oregon has not created a turnover all year, or I should say forced a turnover in their first 2 games yet. They've committed 5 of their own. So watch out. That might be a factor in this game. Who wins the turnover battle could go a long way in who covers this particular matchup. Again,
Yeah,
we're going to move on. Go ahead, Chip.
well, no, I was just saying, it's such a juggernaut on offense. They can commit 5 turnovers and still cover both games they played.
Yeah, and they did so in the first 2 matchups. So you took the words right out of my mouth. Central Florida, we talked about this on Tuesday, Chip, and I said, let's see if we see some line movement here. Pretty much has stayed the same. It opened at 3, Cincinnati being the favorite. And when we talked on Tuesday, they were 6. Now they're anywhere from 5.5 to 6.5. And again, I'm seeing a lot of money go Cincinnati's way here, according to my figures here. And I think, like I said earlier in this week, nothing's changed my mind to tell you that I think Central Florida is dangerous in this spot, especially as a home underdog.
I agree, Ross, and I think there's plenty of factors to support our contentions in this. They lost by 1 point to Memphis, blowing a 21-point lead. I'm talking about Central Florida, of course. They had 698 yards total in that game, and then they lost. They blew another 20-point lead in the game. They got beat. Whoever beat them is Memphis. No, Memphis the first one.
SMU.
SMU. Yes. But the point I'm trying to get to is that they're still number 1 in the nation in total offense, 610 yards a game. Yeah. And though the Bearcats have an excellent defense, I mean, they really have, this offense has been something special for years. And I'll tell you something else, and I think you're aware of this, Ross, because you're a guy that likes to look at this type of stuff. I think they've been an outrageous play as an underdog as well, Central Florida.
Yeah. Well, this is like the 7th time they've been a home underdog since 2011. Think about that. I mean, they're not in this position too often.
Right.
And usually the Central Florida program, when you get them to play with a chip on their shoulder, and we've seen it throughout the years when they get in these bowl games against these bigger conferences, Power 5 conferences, I should say, programs with a bigger brand name, they really step up. It's their chance to prove they belong. And I think this is going to be one of those spots. I mean, not that they're going up in class in terms of playing an SEC team and our ACC team, but this is a darn good Cincinnati team, Chipper. They're number 7 in the country.
We both have, I think we both have great regard for this Bearcat team and great respect for them. You turned them on to me the first week of the season, and I used them as a best bet over Army. And remember how they gave up a score before they even had the ball on offense, for crying out loud, and managed to cover against a really tough Army team, and I was impressed. We've been following them all year. They blew Houston out. They've been a money-making machine, but this is a different animal, this offense the Panthers have here, and I'm sure they've been laying in wait for this. You know, they've been champions in this conference, and they've been a tough side for a while, and I think that Cincinnati is going to have all they can handle here.
Yeah, UCF. I'm sorry, it wasn't SMU. They blew the game against. It was Tulsa. They had a 26-6 lead in the first half, and they lost the game 34-26. And Memphis, they had a 21-point lead in the second half, and they blew that game 50-49. If they have an enigma, Chipper, it's certainly on the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely.
That's where their falling is. They did come up with decent efforts in their last 2 games against Houston and Temple, but like you alluded to, they're going to be facing a whole different animal here in Cincinnati. And look at Cincinnati's defensive numbers, what they've allowed: 24-10 against Army, 28-7 against South Florida, 42-13. They held SMU to just 13 points. They hold Memphis to just 10 points, Houston to 10 points. And last week, they held East Carolina to 17 points. What that amounts to, they're allowing a little over 12 points per contest, a little over 300 yards per game. So it's going to be strength on strength here when you get the UCF offense on the field against the Cincinnati defense. I'm certainly eagerly looking ahead to this matchup, Chipper. All right, Indiana and Ohio State. Here's another game with a lot of intrigue. Another one that raises a red flag, and I don't know if I mentioned this on Tuesday, but it's worth mentioning again. This shows you how much the pollsters are so far off in the bookmakers' eyes, okay? You have the number 3 team in the country facing the number 9 team in the country. You would think that's pretty much a competitive matchup, and the power rating should be close, with maybe the number 3 team having a power rating of 3 to 4 points better at the most.
Yeah.
Well, in this particular instance, they opened at 19.5, meaning Ohio State. They're up to 20.5. And that tells me if this game was played at Indiana, the Buckeyes would still be laying 14.5 points. So again, a perfect example to me. My antennas went up. I think a lot of people are going to be on Indiana this week. My only hesitation, Chip, as you know, is they've stuck it in my ear a couple times this year already, Indiana, and as recently as last week. What's your thoughts, buddy?
My thoughts were the line was very strong, and I know you're aware that Indiana hasn't beaten this team on the field since I think 1988 or 86, somewhere along those lines, and they just don't even seem to cover against this team. The average margin of victory, I think, in the last 10 years has been exactly 21 points. So here's Ohio State coming up at that number. But you know what, Ross? When they've met all those previous seasons, Indiana wasn't ranked number 7.
No.
And Ohio State was always going to be ranked in the top 10. Now, Indiana is a much better club now. They were very, very fortunate to get away with a win. We talked about this opening week against Penn State, who actually pushed them around the entire game. And since then, they've solidified themselves. They were very impressive last week, beating Michigan State. Sorry, I had to leave that for you.
Yeah.
Now, Michigan State stinks. I got beat by them, too, the week before by Iowa, 35-7. So there's nothing to be chagrined about here. But I just think we got a winner here, and I think you'd have to lay it before you take it, my instincts. But this is not a game that I'd be more than interested in watching because I think we have better value and better games out there, Ross. Indiana, like you said, they've hurt you, they've hurt me, and why get involved? Well, I'm waiting. No. We can pick our spots, and this doesn't have to be one of them. So,
yeah, and it's a prove-it game for Indiana, too. I mean, you could say, yeah, they're 4-0. A couple weeks back, they faced Michigan. Michigan had defeated them 25 consecutive times. They got over that hurdle. Now, as Chip just alluded to, they're playing Ohio State. Ohio State's won the last 26 meetings in this series. Indiana hasn't beaten them since 1988. But the difference is this version of Ohio State is a heck of a lot better than this year's version of Michigan. And Indiana, by the way, Chipper, they're 4-0. The teams they've beat this season are a combined 3-13. So it's not like, I mean, you beat Michigan, you beat Michigan State, you beat Penn State, but who would have thought one of those teams would be 0-4 and the other two 1-3? So not their fault. They took care of business against the teams they're asked to beat, and they have. Now it's going to be a very stern test, and we'll see how good Indiana is this week. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean they have to win the game, but if they play Ohio State competitively, I'll be sold, Chipper. So I'm a little tough on them to this point.
You know what? I think one of the problems we have this year, and it seems to be having gravitating to this over the recent seasons, is that the elite are so much better than everyone else in their conference. Alabama hasn't had a competitive game yet. They're favored by 31 on the road in conference games, 28, 25, 24 continuously. They were going to be 21-point favorites on the road against LSU. And Ohio State's the same way. These big power teams are just so dominant. And I'm wondering, maybe that's – the teams in their conference are suffering, but it seems like teams like Cincinnati, Central Florida, and Liberty could emerge because some of the talent, I guess, that might be a backup player at Auburn or at Mississippi State is now a starter at one of these other schools.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know if that's actually the reason, Ross, but there is a major, major step between the top tier and the next step down.
I agree. There's a big disparity. I mean, again, I keep bringing up the rankings, how convoluted they've been when you look at the point spreads. I mean, another perfect example is right here. You got number 21 Liberty on Saturday traveling to Raleigh, North Carolina to take on North Carolina State. Liberty, the number 21 team in the land, playing an unranked opponent. Once again, they're an underdog. This opened at 3. It's moved to 3.5. Not a bad North Carolina State team. I think they're 5-2 on the year. But another prove-it game for Liberty, and we both remember Unfortunately, we both remember the last time Liberty was in this position as a ranked team going against an unranked opponent and getting 17 points in that instance at Virginia Tech. They won the game outright, 38-35. Chipper, could they do it again against another ACC opponent on the road?
They sure can. Well, you know what? At least it isn't Virginia Tech, because we've had that happen to us with them against Miami as well. But this might be the Flames' Waterloo here. NC State's got a pretty potent offense, and I know the Liberty defense has been very effective, though they did give up a bushel of points against Virginia Tech. How often, Ross, can they respond to this step up in class? You do it in horse racing, which might be you bring a horse up and he moves up in class. Sooner or later, he gets to that point of where he can't improve anymore. So, it's just are they at this point? Is it going to catch them? It did catch my eye. I think that the Wolfpack may be worth consideration here. They're going to have to score some points. They got a quarterback that can throw the ball, and I enjoy watching him. But another really interesting game because, like we said, the have-nots are emerging now. We've got Liberty here, and some of these other unheralded schools.
Yes.
Unheralded schools are making their way. So, very interesting to see what's going to happen here.
Yeah, and again, they're not sneaking up on anybody this time. You know what I mean?
No.
If North Carolina State takes them lightly, shame on them because they're in the middle of their ACC schedule and they're playing Liberty. Okay, but if they take them lightly, it would be a sad mistake for that program because right now they're in a position to have a very good year, and they have to learn their lesson from what happened at Virginia Tech. I wonder if North Carolina State was scheduled in that same spot with swap with Virginia Tech in a scheduling chip.
Right.
Would that be around a 17-point favorite like Virginia Tech was? Probably not, but I would venture to say before Liberty showed they could beat somebody that was worthy, they probably would have been in the 10-14 range, I would say. But that shows you the bookmakers are starting to respect Liberty a little bit as well. And don't forget, Liberty put up close to 500 yards of total offense at Virginia Tech, Chip.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a fluke. They earned that win, So anyway, let's move on to the next game. Speaking of Coastal Carolina.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, another program, upstart program, unheralded program on the rise. And they're going to be playing a tough matchup this week. If it hasn't been canceled, I'm checking the schedule right now to make sure that it hasn't been canceled because that's what we have to do these days. Playing App State this week. So that should be a very good Sun Belt Conference matchup, Chip. We'll see what happens there. For whatever reason, I cannot find a line on that game. And I'm starting to think maybe it was canceled.
Yeah,
Let me check here. I mean, again, I'm not seeing it on the cancellation list. And anyway, we'll get to it. If I find that game, we'll get to it. But that's an interesting matchup. Coastal Carolina right now, 5.5-point favorite over App State. Let's take a look at another interesting matchup here. Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, number 14 in the country, +7 against number 18 Oklahoma. Should be a heck of a matchup. Oklahoma's really came on over the last couple weeks, Chipper. We're really looking like the Oklahoma team we thought they would be early in the year. And Oklahoma State, just that one loss to Texas in overtime, we both know they're a very good defensive team for a Big 12 conference team. Chuba Hubbard, one of the best running backs in all of college football. Could Oklahoma State keep this close?
Ross, I think they can. We have a pair of Spencers quarterbacking each of these clubs.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma State, the Cowboys can play defense. They're allowing 302 yards a game, and Oklahoma's allowing 500 yards a game. In a rivalry game like this, I think the defense is paramount. I don't think the Sooners are going to be able to run over the Cowboys and do what they have done over so many other clubs. But what I'm apprehensive about is I think the line is very strong. Even though I like Oklahoma State in the matchup, I would have felt more comfortable if the odds maker had made Oklahoma 5.5 or something under 6. Strong is a seven number. Strong number 7 is a strong number, and I think it's inviting to take a Cowboy team who has played well defensively and they're ranked. they should be able to be very competitive in this game.
Yeah, it's to me, it looks like a game that's going to go down to the wire. Oklahoma State certainly hasn't had a lot of success against Oklahoma over the years, and they've had some pretty good teams at Oklahoma State,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, they just never match up well against their in-state rival. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I know Oklahoma's got that prolific, explosive offense right now that's running on high gear, running on high cylinders right now, but you know what? Oklahoma State's defense is good enough to keep them in this game. You mentioned the Spencer quarterback, Spencer Sanders of Oklahoma State. He was out for a couple games early on, and that really hurt their offensive production.
Yep.
With him back in the lineup, they're a whole different offense. Now they have a passing threat, and to go along with the, open up some lanes for Chuba Hubbard. You look, to me, this goes down to the wire. When I say that, most times than not, I'm siding with the underdog when it comes to those types of matchups. Speaking of a good matchup, Chipper, Wisconsin and Northwestern. The Badgers 2-0, Northwestern 4-0. Pat Fitzgerald's team is a 7-point home underdog in the spot. Could Northwestern hang with Wisconsin? I mean, boy, the Badgers, they've only played 2 games, but they looked awful well. And a lot of people thought that they were going to show some rust last week after not playing for a couple of weeks. They go into Ann Arbor and they just shellac the Wolverines 49-11. And Northwestern, not real flashy, not blowing people out except for the opener against Maryland. And they just get the job done, Chip. They're workmanlike in the way they go about things.
Well, I know Northwestern, I think, has gotten the money 5 of the last 6 times these 2 teams have played, at least when they played it in Northwestern. Northwestern held Purdue to 2 rushing yards last week, but this Wisconsin team, who annihilated a very weak Illinois team, annihilated a Michigan team that we don't know what they have, for crying out loud. They've only played those 2 games. Mertz, is that the quarterback's name? M-E-T-Z-R-Z? Yeah.
Yes.
Mertz, he went 21 for 22 the first time out. Then he was 12 for 22 last time out. So he's come back to earth a little bit. But, that may have something to do with the fact that this team had games canceled, Ross. The quarterback was out because they were not able to practice. And there were all kinds of issues surrounding them. But their defense is only allowing 200 yards a game because of their opposition. You talk about opponents and strength of schedule, and right now this is going to be their toughest match to date, and I think that's going to be telling in the line. Again, we've got a very strong, good home club that plays well against this particular team. It's a conference game, and they're 4-0.
Yeah,
the Wildcats are 4-0.
Don't look now. Yeah, I mean they're nothing to sneeze at, and the big thing for Northwestern in this game is how much can they contain the Wisconsin running game. There's no secret. Wisconsin wants to line up and play smash mouth football. They always have great offensive linemen, and they always turn into good NFL players. And they just keep rotating and getting more new kids in that are along the same mold. They always have that one running back that's a star. And, this is a very difficult Wisconsin team to play against. Now, having said that, I never underestimate Pat Fitzgerald's team. And he's going to have to really show me something. If Northwestern wants to be considered a threat in the Big Ten, this is certainly a measuring stick. I would say, and again, it's not one of those games you necessarily have to see Northwestern win, but you want to see them stay close and competitive and know they're the real deal going forward, Chip. So is there any other games that come to mind that you'd like to talk about that I've missed? Iowa, Penn State, possibly. Iowa's a 2.5-point favorite here. I know that this is your Big Ten game of the year this week?
Yeah, it's going to be Iowa, Penn State. Thank you very much for bringing it up. It's on chipwins.com, my website, which is currently up and running. Iowa, Penn State is going to be my Big Ten game of the year. I think I've got this one really corralled, and everyone will just log on, follow the buy links, and become a big-time A-play winner. And I like this game, Ross. I really do. I think it's a strong play. And, one of the problems we've had, and I know the last 2 weeks, both of us have had games that were like top choices or top rated plays of ours that were canceled.
Yeah.
And, it really drops the quality of the games we're looking at. And
Yeah.
I know I've had to grope around a little bit since then, but this matchup stands up, and I think we have enough out there to make have a really good day and become big time winners this week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this week. By the way, we're recording on Thursday. We both have selections in the NFL tonight in the big NFC West matchup between Arizona and Seattle. You can get that at chipwins.com or by going to my website at rbwins.com. I'll have 3 to 5 picks up on Saturday in college football. Sunday, again, the NFL for both of us. My NFL's been on fire, Chip, for 32-21, 60% since the first Monday of the season. And again, Chip, if people want to reach you, how could they get a hold of you?
All right, you can, of course, go to the website, which is chipwins.com, or if you're looking for some kind of special package or you have different needs, you can give me a call personally at 702-931-2447. And Ross, that's 931-CHIP. I'm at 702 area code in Las Vegas, 931-2447. Thank you, Ross.
Take advantage of that, folks. You're talking to a veteran handicapper who's been around for a long time for a reason, and I know personally he's a clutch handicapper. His Big Ten game of the year, you don't want to miss that on Saturday. That's chipwins.com. Tomorrow we're going to be covering our late edition of the NFL Chipper. But until then, for Ross Benjamin and Chip Chirimbes, we'd like to thank you, I should say, for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good luck and God bless.